All right, good evening. The time being 7 p.m. on January 31st, 2022. All members of the planning board being present. I'll note Mr. Fattalia is on via Zoom, or I don't know, whatever we use, but all members are present. Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes, which we have none this evening. Moving on to agenda item B, committee reports. Do any of the members have any committee reports they wish to make at this time?
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
All set, Mr. Chair.
All set. Okay, very good.
Found him.
Moving on to agenda item B, town planners report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I on? There we go. Okay, so the first item I wanted to call to your attention is that we have hired a new administrative assistant in the department. Her name is Jackie Powers. She started today. It was her first day. And she will be taking on the responsibility of planning board meeting minutes. So we're going to probably get the last two and then tonight's meeting ready for the next meeting. So we'll be able to catch up on some minutes on February 14th. Next item I wanted to note is that on January 26th, myself, Mr. Fattalia, and Mr. Fowler attended a walkthrough of the new fire station, along with other town officials, accompanied by the town manager. They are nearing substantial completion for their construction, which is currently targeted for Friday, February 4th. And according to Chief Kearns, they are aiming to be operating out of the new fire station the first week of March. That's going to be pending the availability of the final finishes and the furniture that they're looking to order. There will be future opportunities to tour the new fire station for the board members, so those who could not attend, I'll keep you up to date on what those next dates might be. Third item I wanted to note is we had a concept plan before this board at the January 10th meeting. It was for a proposed strawberry greenhouse at 60 Highland View Road. At that meeting, Mr. Hammer had noted that they were going to seek a variance for side yard setbacks from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which was granted on Thursday, January 27th. That the decision is currently under draft and should be filed with the town clerk shortly, meaning that they should be able to move forward with that rough site plan as they presented to this board. The last item I wanted to bring to your attention was in reviewing the applications for tonight's meeting and some that have come into the office for upcoming meetings. I wanted to discuss future sidewalk installations for Main Street. Currently, from Victor Drive to the Wilmington line, we have two segments of sidewalk missing, and that is 125 feet along the frontage of Balance Spa, which is 1788 Main Street, and approximately 250 feet in front of the frontage of First Colonial Building Plaza, which is the plaza that has Angelina's Italian Restaurant and Long's Kitchen. Completion of these segments of sidewalk would bring Tewksbury closer to the vision proposed in the most recent master plan, which was adopted by the planning board on June 20th, 2016. One of the key concerns highlighted was the needing to identify deficient pedestrian links and build new sidewalks in town. In addition to constructing those sidewalks, these two remaining portions of Main Street, signal updates would be required at the intersection of Main and Livingston, and that would improve access to the LRTA stops at that portion of Main Street as well, which are across from McDonald's and Burger King, 1925 Main Street and 1965 respectively. Completing these additional sections of sidewalk and implementing pedestrian signal updates would increase accessibility to resources along Main Street, including Circle Health, Market Basket, and the LRTA, which are vital resources to all residents, but particularly those who aren't able to drive and rely on public transportation. Filling in the missing links to the pedestrian infrastructure makes the town eligible for mobility grants when clear connections are in place. A lot of grant programs don't want to fund the beginnings of things or the design work, unfortunately, but they will be more willing to fund areas that will complete networks of pedestrian mobility. And I wanted to note that to date, the Planning Board Sidewalk Fund has a balance of $158,839.57. And I just wanted to offer that information to the board if they were to choose to pursue any additional sidewalks at this time to kind of link up those sections, because we would be clear all the way to the Wilmington line, with most of it being on that side of Main Street through Walgreens, which is primarily where a lot of the resources and businesses are anyway. And if there's any information I can get for you folks ahead of the next meeting, you can let me know.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't help but think of the fact that that hole in the sidewalk is beside two other holes that are going to be filled, for lack of a better description. El Fresca's restaurant is purchasing the building that Orbit's Liquor used to be on, and they have agreed to, they're coming in later tonight, to put the sidewalk in the front of that building. Also, where the Starbucks is going, sidewalk is going in. So that's both sides of Balance Spa. So I would hope that either the town or ourselves could get together with those two contractors, whoever is doing that job, to see what it would cost to put in the sidewalks in front of the present Balance Spa. And that way, it could all be done at one time, or reasonably close to one time. So that's all. Just, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Rado?
Alex, if you could find out if the town has any sidewalk contracts going out this spring that we could piggyback off of various locations. I mean, 158,000 is probably not going to get us much, but, and I believe that's going to be concrete sidewalks remaining, so I don't know if that will be enough, but potentially if we're willing to kick that money in, if the town could use some of either Complete Streets or Chapter 90 to complete that section.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question if I could.
Mr. Fattalia, go ahead.
Yeah, I know we agreed to do some sidewalks off of East Street, up across from 913 East, I believe, where the landscaping company is up there, and I don't know if that was included in our plans, or if Alex knows the status of that presently.
I'm not aware of any projects ongoing on East Street for sidewalks at this time, but I can certainly inquire with the town engineer and see if there's anything in the pipeline.
I think Mr. Hanley, who's coming up next on the agenda tonight, maybe I could ask him, because he was the gentleman who brought it in front of us, and I thought they were progressing to do the sidewalks, but that was part of the plan, to allocate that money for the sidewalks across the street from the project, rather than putting it into the general fund. So we can ask him later on tonight about that, if that's progressing or not. So I thought it was, but you never know these days. But I also wanted to tell you, Alex, great job on these notes. It's something that we could use as we review our notes and our materials every week. So just getting the update from you is a nice addition to our information we get on these permits and so forth we look at. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely, and if the chairman will allow me to respond to Mr. Fattalia momentarily. Mr. Hanley's actually not with us tonight, but the contribution for that sidewalk donation has not been made yet. So the 158,000 figure that I cited earlier is aside from that, what is going to be contributed for 913 East Street. So
Okay.
Once they get closer to their building permits, and that would be something that I would ask for before I sign off, is that sidewalk donation, the fee that we had calculated a couple of months ago. I can definitely ask about the status of that as well.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Delaney, did you have anything?
Oh, just one thing. With the 158,000, when we want to try to fill in a space, is that done by the town, or can we get that done privately with the people that are there, or I don't know, because
It will have to go up to bid.
as the town, we spend a lot of money, and privately, they don't, they spend probably half of what we spend.
That will have to go out to bid.
It has to go out to bid and it's through the town.
Yes.
It'll have to be done, yeah. Okay, that's all.
That goes back to, some of my reasons for not accepting money when we are requesting sidewalks, because of the cost is, sometimes triple the cost for the town to do it versus a private contractor installing them. So,
All right, so, do you have anything else, Mr. Delaney?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
I'm all set.
So the only two that I guess there were two things. One would be, if we can get a ballpark idea of what it would cost to fill in those two sections, so we know sort of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. The other part, I guess, isn't important right now, so that's fine. Yeah, so if we could just get just a ballpark idea of what that would run to get the, I guess, broken up between the two, because
Yep.
obviously that piece next to where the other ones right now, by Alfrescas, might make the most sense because other things are going on there right now versus the other one. Plus, it's also the smaller of the two in size, so.
Yes, and the portion that would connect to Livingston Street, like I mentioned, is going to require an update to the the pedestrian signal there, which is,
Bit
going
more
to cost a
involved.
little bit more, yeah.
Correct. So, yeah, if we could get that just as a ballpark idea.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, so anything else that wasn't on here that you have to add?
Nope, I don't think so.
Good, all right. Let's get a planners report. Moving on to agenda item C, 30 East Street. This is a continuation of our site plan special permit, and Town Center Overlay District and Groundwater Protection District requests. Gentlemen, if you just state your name for the record, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, David Plunkett, representing the applicant. With me here at the table is Dennis Gricci from the Andover Consultants, Inc., the engineer in charge of the project, and Mr. Walsh, who is the principal of Carolina Properties, LLC. And we'll go into a presentation of the revision to the plans. Just as a quick overview, we feel that we've pretty well, addressed all the issues that need to be addressed. One of the things, just to point out relative to certain questions as to certain details and enforcement issues that we did submit, draft condominium documents as an indication as to how these items could be handled, and specifically then isolated as certain pages of the document with reference to language pertaining to incorporating the special permit, so that anyone that is acquiring property would see the reference to the special permit. Terms and conditions are incorporated by reference. The snow storage issue relative to the necessity to transport off-site if necessary. And then the last issue relative to a question that came up as to the town engineer's request to have something specific as to the maintenance of the swale as proposed in the plans, that it would be constructed and maintained to assure that, and that's all incorporated into the terms of the condominium proposal. And, again, just as a reference, that anything of that sort can certainly be addressed by incorporation into documents that are to be recorded. But with that, I'll turn it over to Dennis to address the change to the plans, and then specifically the response letter to Mr. Hardeman as to his last submittal of questions pertaining to the project.
Thank you. Dennis Gricci with Andover Consultants, as Attorney Plunkett stated. We did make a few plan changes. This was done the previous iteration, the January 12th documents, to respond to some of Mr. Hardeman's comments. One of those was digging test pits in the rear of the site. So we went out a few weeks ago, we dug test pits. Those were witnessed by the Department of Public Works. Those two test pits were in the rear of the site here. I don't know if the board can see my screen. Is this not?
think it's turned
No?
on.
Thanks so much. Let me ask Jason.
I can break out a presentation board if that's easier.
I think he said it's coming out.
Okay.
He's-
Test pits, as I was, there it is. So we dug 2 additional test pits here in the rear of the site, test pits 7 and 8.
Those lights on.
Those were so that we could calculate the infiltration rate of this low area here. This low area is designed to capture some runoff from the back of the site, so the roof will go to the detention system in the parking lot. However, there was a small landscaped area kind of circling it here that was flowing to an abutter. So what we've done is we've created a small low area to capture and infiltrate that system. Again, that's what the reason for those 2 test pits were. Another minor plan change was we shifted this retaining wall here slightly to the plan right in order to better define a swale, again, that would capture runoff, and you can see it swales to the back. And again, this also discharges to this low-lying area here. So those 2 small landscaped areas, which were previously running off to an abutter, have now been better defined to detain and infiltrate in the rear of the site. Those are the only plan changes that we've made since the last set that was submitted to the board. In the latest comment from Mr. Hardiman, we've also addressed further concerns about the auto turn analysis that was provided. Our response was that the auto turn, the passenger car utilized in those auto turns was a 19-foot long vehicle, which is the largest industry, or the largest passenger car the auto turn has, which is what they use. So a standard SUV might be 16 feet, 16 and a half feet. We're utilizing a car that's quite a bit bigger than that. Again, that's the nature of auto turn, and it kind of has a conservative modeling analysis. In addition to that, we have provided Mr. Hardiman with some documents regarding the snow removal, as Mr. Plunkett stated, and also the construction of the swale will be done per the plans, which the whole site will be built per the plans, but specifically the swale. I believe that's the only changes to the plan. So if the board has any questions specific to those 2 changes or anything else, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
All right. Anything else?
I think we're ready for questions from the board.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Ryder.
Thank you. This print's a little small. What's the, my eyes aren't what they used to. What's your swale? What are you talking? That one, 4 inches roughly?
The depth.
Yeah.
The minimum depth is 6 inches. It does vary.
Okay, it's just difficult to read here.
Yeah. So we do have a profile on one of the detail sheets.
Okay.
But the minimum depth of the swale is 6 inches, and it actually goes down to about 1.5 feet.
Foot and a half.
Yep.
It is a little bit of a concern in the backyard of a complex that eventually will potentially fill with water.
So, misunderstanding the question, the swale is a varying depth. It's 6 inches down to 1.5 feet. The depth of the pond in the back is 6 inches. If I could pull that up, just so we're looking at the same. This pond here in the rear,
Yeah.
this low area, it's just about 6 inches deep, and it's going to be loamed and seeded, so it'll be grassed. It'll be cut with the other surrounding landscaped area. And so it's not a detention pond, as you picture. It's a 6-inch depressed area that's just going to collect some runoff. It will infiltrate.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, Mr. Fowler?
In that same area, when you did the 2 test pits, where was water reserved?
Water was observed. I'd have to pull up the test pit log, but I don't have that. The test pit logs were sent to Mr. Hardeman as part of the submittal package.
Doesn't say, I didn't see anything on that. Didn't say anything where they,
Estimated seasonal high water was at 110.63. I don't know exactly where water was observed. So, you know, we did observe water in the hole, weeping into the hole. I don't know that elevation. But estimated seasonal high was estimated at 110.63.
I mean, my concern is, obviously, how high water will be when we see the record, but if we don't have the facts to make a decision, I have to know how far the water that's ponding down, going down the swale to the bigger area, how much distance there is between water observed and the top of the bottom of the swale.
So maybe they were talking about two different things. The estimated seasonal high water was estimated at a depth of elevation of 110.63. So we have a minimum of 2 feet separation between the bottom of that low area and estimated seasonal high water.
Okay.
Water was observed in the hole quite a few feet below that. So water actually pouring into the hole.
That's what I want to know.
Right. So water observed was several feet below the estimated seasonal high, which was
Fine,
okay.
thank you. Makes sense, thank you. All set.
Okay. Go with Mr. Delaney.
The question, well, they answered my questions on the swale, but is that swale going to be landscaped, or like, is there going to be grass, and they're going to have to cut the grass, or through the condo association? How is that going to operate?
It will be loamed and seeded and maintained as grassed area. So it'll be cut as part of the HOA. When they come in and cut the grass for the site, that'll be part of the cutting schedule.
But doesn't that take away some of the depth that you're talking about by landscaping it?
That's calculated into the design of the swale. So the cross section of the swale has it so that it's a 6-inch minimum depth. It goes up to, I think, 1.5 feet. That grass is not going to take up any of that volume area.
With everything else, the one question I have is the snow storage. You have a couple of areas. Is that going to be enough area to store the snow that you're going to plow, or do you have to remove it? You're going to remove the snow. Like the storm we just had, I don't know if you have enough storage for the snow that's going to exist. You know, so do you have, is it going to be in the plan or in the condo association thing that it has to be removed?
We do have a note on the plan that accumulated snow shall be removed from the site per the HOA agreement. We do have some areas identified for snow storage. It probably would not be sufficient for a snowstorm like this one we received this past weekend. So we do have a note on the plan, and we do also have an HOA document that Attorney Plunkett has prepared outlining the snow removal, you know, when it should happen and at what intervals it should happen.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Fattalia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of questions. We've been working on this project for a long time. We first heard this concept plan January 21st, 21. You know, we've discussed a lot of options to get it to where it is today. But I still don't think we have resolved a lot of the issues we discussed in prior meetings regarding parking issues, access in and out of the project as far as the fire department. I know you guys decided to move the project like 5 feet up in order to not have the need to provide a fire engine into the access and have to provide auto turns. So, but I still think we're missing some parking for the visitors. We talked about that. That seems to be lost in the discussions here. There's not enough visitor parking, in my opinion, for the project. Snow storage, like Mr. Delaney just mentioned. I mean, how soon, if with the snow we had the other day, how soon would you be able to remove that snow for residents to be able to get in and out of that process? Regarding another project where a plowing situation would allow them to get in and out, okay. But it just seems like it's just so tight in there that there's not enough room for all of those different conditions and changes and so forth. And you tried to resolve to get this into compliance for us to review and make a decision on, so I think you kind of know where I'm going, I think, with this, and, you know, I know we redesigned it to a degree, but I just hope, you guys know where I'm going with this, and when, in my opinion, you know, you haven't done enough to, provide me an opportunity to vote the way you want me to vote, I believe, in this discussion, so, I just want you to make aware of that, so with that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fattalia. So, what's that? No. Okay.
I wish Mr. Fattalia had asked a question. That way, maybe the petitioners could answer what their thoughts are.
Yeah, if you want to, if you want to address what Mr. Fattalia was discussing.
Son, I've spoken, East Coast Irrigation.
All right, I think what we have to do is move the mic over because we have to be sure it gets picked up. Thank you, and then just give your name if you would.
Yeah, Gerard Wells, Carolina Properties. I spoke regarding this snow removal issue with one of my subcontractors, East Coast Irrigation, Dave Connolly. He's preparing a snow contract for removal on this, and he's planning on using a skid steer and a six-wheeler. So if we had a snowstorm like we just had, the plow would be a skid steer, and it would load right onto the truck instead of pushing it. So that'll be right in the contract with the snow removal contract.
And if I could also point out, specifically, within the terms of the proposed setup of the homeowners association in 2 locations, in terms of making it clear that this is part and parcel of the operation of the association. As Mr. Walsh said, that's part of the overall condominium fee, that if there was an exhibit to the draft, there were no hard numbers in there, but landscaping and snow removal are part of the budget items. So that has to be part of the process. So the idea that, it's not going to be done, it will be done. And it's going to be done because we have it as a condition of the, you can put it in it's going to be in your special permit, I'm sure. We have it on the plans that's going to be approved. We're going to have it in the format of the condominium. We have it in our Exhibit A to the condominium. We have it in our rules and regulations. And we have it as a budget item in the proposed condominium plan. So that is, I don't know, I don't think we could do anything more than to say that, Mr. Walsh knows specifically the type of contract that needs to be done. We're committing ourselves to that type of contract, and that would be part and parcel of the homeowners association that we're presented and are committing ourselves to, and will be held to, because it will be terms and conditions that we're agreeing to. So that's, I think it does address the issue of the concerns, and there has been a lot of work done to address that situation. It's not something, and any feedback is taken seriously, and it has to be taken seriously. And I think that we have addressed as well as it can be, and that it should eliminate the concern to say that this will be part of the operation of the association as it will exist.
Jim?
He understands. Let me just have it. Mr. Delaney.
I have one question. With the swales and stuff, okay, the landscaping that's gonna be done, they cannot change that swale in any way, shape, or form. Because if they change it, or they fill it in, or they do something, now you've got a real problem with the water. Okay, it looks like, I don't know, the swale looks like very minimal to me, and I just want to make sure that in the condo thing, or whatever it is, the association, that the landscaping doesn't change.
And, I mean,
We've run into this before, and I want to make sure it's not
Yeah.
changed.
And one of the things, we utilized a format that we used, that my office used. We had a condominium project in Groton, actually, and it was a rehab of an old school. And part of that was, there were a number of historic issues. There was, this wasn't on sewer, there was a septic system that had some very, the Neshoba Board of Health had put certain conditions and terms. There was a playground area that was being maintained for the public and things of that sort. So that's, you can have situations that are able to be addressed, and it's addressed by the fact that you bring it clear and obvious to anyone that's going to be involved in the project, any purchaser, anyone that, and you address it through the documents. So, and we did indicate here terms and conditions of special permit issued by the planning board, recorded book and page, foregoing the subject to following rights, reservations, and encumbrances which are held and enforceable by the town. So, not only is it to protect you, but believe me, it's also to protect the developer, because the last thing anyone involved in a project like this wants to do is to be the recipient of these phone calls. Hey, I didn't know about this. Hey, no one told me about this. And, and so these terms and conditions, they're all spelled out there. They'll be, enforced because and there's a reason for repetitive reference, so that no one can say, oh, I didn't know about that. It's going to be, it's going to be something that's made clear, and it's a tool that's utilized in many occasions to address the concerns of a board or a town, to assure that what's discussed during a meeting like this is brought into fruition when it's actually built out and people have to follow the rules.
All right, Mr. Fowler, you had something?
Real quickly, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Plunkett. The funds to pay the contractor are already established through condo dues, correct me?
Correct. That's why I put as a budget. Again, I didn't put numbers, but just to show you, that all these things are part. So when someone buys, one of the first things they want to know is, excuse me, what's my condo fee, and what does it consist of? And so we have in the specific line item is going to be snow removal, and that snow removal budget is going to be based on what was just talked about by Mr. Walsh in terms of saying, we've got to address these issues, so that contract is going to be X number of dollars a year. All these other things, you add it up, you have your capital reserve fund, you have your condo fee that is going to be the, 4 units divided by 12, and then, that finances what's necessary to be done at the site.
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Attorney Plunkett. Thank you.
All right, so I guess my turn. Okay, get to me. I guess, I understand what everybody's saying, I do, but I find myself sort of torn, and I think I've said it a couple of times now, because one of the things we seem a little held up on is the parking, is that you exceed what's required by 2. So I'm struggling with the fact that, to look at it and say it's not enough, we're basically saying our own rule is not requiring enough, because 9 is what you need, 11 is what you're providing. But at the same time, I can understand that in looking at where the 11 spaces are and how they, are on the property, that's giving, some of the members, pause. But for me, that's sort of the struggle, because I mean, you to say we want more is going against what we're already asking for, because you gave more by 2 already. So, we get parking requests. I believe we have one for the other meeting we have for tonight, where you want less parking than what's required. That's not even one of the waivers you're asking for. But you are asking for waivers. So it's one of those things that when it comes back to the board, you're asking for something. In this case, maybe some of the members see this as something that they're asking for as the trade-off. If you didn't need waivers, then you might be in a different boat. The waivers that you have here are not as significant as we've been asked for from other people, so that's another weighing for everybody too. But I don't necessarily have I mean, I know that in practice, the concerns for some of the issues that are being brought up, as Attorney Plunkett has pointed out, you're addressing them. The question that some are whether or not in practice it'll work. Not that you haven't addressed them, but will it work in practice? And that's really where you're going to have to get everybody here comfortable, I guess, is that they believe that what you've provided will in fact do that. I feel like I'm okay with what's in front of me, but remember, you need 4 out of 5 to move forward, because there's no affordable in this. If there were, you'd be at 3 out of 5. So, I know it sounded like from Mr. Fattalia, without putting words in his mouth, that he isn't in that place at this point. I don't know if at your allowance, I suppose, I could kind of go around the table and maybe get you an idea of where we are, because I don't know, I'm not sure how else to do that for you. I mean, otherwise, we go into this blind if you let us close a hearing or not, you know what I mean, without giving you an idea of where we are. And I think we got into trouble with that once before, so I just assume not do that to anybody. I'd like to at least sort of, so I'll start with Mr. Fattalia, because I know when he spoke, it left us with the impression that he's not ready yet. Yep. So I'm going to start with Mr. Fattalia if I could. So Mr. Fattalia, if I understood you when you spoke, I'm sorry, Mr. Plunkett.
If I could just give a little further introduction before the polling.
Yeah.
In terms of just looking at the intent of the TCOD, is that to encourage people to come in and invest their money into areas that was never able to be brought into an appropriate new life because of the underlying zoning pitfalls or restrictions that basically eliminated someone like Mr. Walsh come in and say, I'll take a chance on that. I will come in, Mayor, and I will make this much better than it is today. So right now we have this parcel of land with a property that's well beyond its useful life. It was once used as I believe, at one point in time, it was a rooming house. So it had significant, use intensely at this site. And now taking it and incorporating some of the historic aspects of this site, have a brand new development that will be a real upgrade and will be something that is deserving of what we're trying to create in the town, in this town center. And that's the purpose of TCOD. And I would just hope that, we could get all the, board members to look at this in its entirety, in the sense of what we're trying to do and what it accomplishes to a very significant part of the town, and the improvement that would be brought to this parcel of land. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Attorney Plunkett. So, Mr. Fattalia, let me put it to it this way. I guess it would be two-part. One would be, do you feel comfortable in moving forward at this point? And let me just, before I go to Mr. Fattalia, there really isn't anything additional that you guys at this point need to provide to us, correct? That's really, I mean, you've kind of given us the complete package, and everybody else feels that way too, right? Okay. So, Mr. Fattalia, I guess the first question is, do you feel comfortable in moving forward on the project at this point? And if the answer to that question is no, do you have a suggestion of what would get you to yes?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, just to address Mr. Plunkett's statement earlier, I am all in favor of increasing and beautifying the area that the project sits on now. But there's also a limit as to what I think is comfortable for me to vote on on the number of units that are there. And that's my biggest hangup, and that's the answer, I guess, Mr. Chairman, to you as well, is I think the project is nice, and I have no problem voting in the affirmative if we ever got this far with a reduced number of units. I mean, everybody in the town hall and everybody else has been discussing the fact that in and out of the garages is a very, very dangerous situation. You're saying, auto turn works, but not everybody may be as efficient in driving as another person. So but that's my hang up as far as the project looks nice. I just think it's one unit too big. So my opinion.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will echo some of Mr. Frataglia's points here. As Mr. Plunkett stated, the Town Center Overlay District was created. Understand. But at the end of the day, the contractor is not in it to beautify the parcel. The contractor is building this. The end goal, it's financial. And we can all sit here and talk about that it's not a financial gain or it's to beautify to this parcel. At the end of the day, if it's not financially feasible for him, he's not going to do this. And that's with every town center overlay project that's gone on in this town. And every contractor has made money off it by putting in a commercial unit and getting condos or apartments or whatever we want to call it. And I understand that, it's in the zoning bylaws. But at the end of the day, we have to look at what is right in that parcel and what is gonna fit in that parcel. And I will commend you, you've done a phenomenal job on what you've done with the front building, but I have to agree with Mr. Fratalia. I've gone from day one, I was very vocal about, I think it's one too many units. You're shoehorning 3 units into this long, narrow parcel. And you see things from the building commissioner concerned about the auto turn. You've heard from other board members here that there's concern about various issues. The snow, that can be worked out. But I will tell you, in my experience, you can have anything you want in a contract from your contractor doing snow. But in a storm like we had this weekend, he is not hauling it out. He's going to do his best to keep up with keeping that open. So the snow's going to stay on that site until probably Sunday when the storm's gone. And that will be a significant impact to the residents there. 18 plus inches of snow, that entire parcel is going to be impassable. Or what happens with that snow? It gets pushed out into the street. And I appreciate, I know you'll have a contract that says you can't do this, it has to be hauled out. Great intentions, but when it comes down to actually making that happen, that's difficult. And I don't think it's time, the DPW doesn't have time to go out and police that during a storm. That's very difficult to be done. I think that's a concern, but I think I can get through that. That's something that can be managed. But I'll agree with Mr. Fratalia. You're trying to get 3 units into a spot that 2 would work great. But it really comes down to financial. Does 2 work? I can't say what the building cost is. I know obviously materials going up, it's coming down, but from you're getting a commercial component here. That's working around the town center overlay district. You're putting in a commercial component, but you're also getting 3 more units. And I think 3 is too much. As I've said from day one, 2 works great. And from a design standpoint, I think you did a phenomenal job. But I think us as a board here, we have to look at those things.
All right, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you.
Mr. Fowler?
Well, I'm not going to make any long speeches.
Sorry, Bob.
All we're looking for is a yes or a no. So I'm going to say, at this juncture, I would vote yes for this.
Okay. Mr. Delaney?
I'm not gonna make any long speeches either. The big concern I have was the snow removal. I think Eric has just reiterated it. The big thing is the swales and stuff are gonna be, as long as the landscaping and that doesn't fill in, my answer is yes, I'd vote for it.
All right, so I'll pick somewhere in the middle. We'll do a long one, but we'll just answer.
A medium?
Yes or no?
I'm going to say, if you're just doing yes, I'd say yes. Partly, and the reasoning is because I believe, I know it's been a long time since we started this, but, and I would not question Mr. Ryder mentioning that he had a problem with the units at the beginning, because I don't remember. And perhaps Mr. Fratalia did too, I don't remember. I just know we've been doing this with this setup since the beginning. So it's not, if it was a no all along, I don't feel like we were clear enough about that, because I feel like we've gone through this process for this long, trying to get to yes and asking for things, which I think at this point you've provided. You've provided a way to deal with the snow. You've got more spaces than would even be required. You moved the building from the back to the front because we asked you to, because it was set up the other way around originally. So to me, I feel like, we ask for things and then we get them. I have a hard time then turning around and saying, but still nah, because I just feel like if we weren't going to get to, or try to get to yes, then why did we go through all that process to do that? So I hope that's somewhere in between. But with my polling of that, right now you have 3 with what you have in front of us, and 2, or at least a no and a, Eric, it was no, right?
I'm not necessarily no. My concern is.
I didn't ask you, and I apologize.
No, and that's
What I
fine.
asked Vinnie was, what would help you get to yes, I guess, and I didn't ask that, so I should have.
And I said this, that, in these new, my apologies for not being here at the last meeting, but, some of these things from the building commissioner, and, as you state, you're using these large vehicles. It's, yeah, could somebody swing a Prius in there?
Mr.
Probably.
Could I say something? So I.
Just pull the mic over, I want to make sure you're getting picked up.
I was concerned about exactly what you're saying to both, everybody, that last parking spot and the computer simulated turning situation and if someone was a bad driver, they would have a hard time getting in and out of there. So what I did was went out to my parking garage, and I put, in my driveway, I put cones up, and I put yellow caution tape up, and I simulated the exact parking lot that we have here, the shape of the building. I actually took videos of this. And I hope my wife's not listening, but I had her get in the car. She's not that great at backing up.
We neither endorse nor not endorse how you went about your test.
Yeah, so because I wanted to simulate what you say, what if we have a bad driver? I hope she's not listening. Anyway, I took a video. She backed out, and she did 3 different maneuvers. So she backed out, and she did a 3-point turn. So she backed out, moved forward, backed up, and drove out the driveway. And the second, and she came within 8 feet of the side parking lot. She didn't even go near it. That's how she was backing up, and she was very cautious. So she did it again, and then she turned and backed to the back of the edge of the parking, the turnaround there, and she did it in a 1 and go. It turned right out, and we have a 350 RX, an LX, it's an SUV. It's not the little one, not the big one either, but it's the middle one. And she did that maneuver, and she backed out, and she did a 1 and go from that parking garage. Then I said, try coming in the other way, to pull straight in. You turn to the left and then back the car into the parking spot. And she did that. And she backed right in, and then now she can just drive straight out, after the snowstorm. So I took a video. I gave it actually I sent Dennis.
We have it. I don't know which one it is. There's 3 here. I don't know.
Well, let's try that one.
Let's see if this works.
So there's on the right is the caution tape, that's the edge of the parking lot, and then the other caution tape's the edge of the building, the shape of everything, and so I'm not sure which one this is. This might be her first attempt, when she did the 3-point turn. So she's like 10 feet away, she's not even, she's not even, look at how far she was, another 10 feet to go here.
Another probably 10 feet to
And then, so she did a 3-point turn on this one. And then I told
Being
her,
overly cautious, there you go. And done.
and that's a good sized car, that's not a small.
Yeah, that's good.
On the driveway.
Show the one.
There she is, hi honey.
We had a demonstration like that before.
Which one? This one
And
here?
then the next one here, second
Might as
one.
well just show the three. It's fine. Just show the three.
All right, this will be a test to see if my wife can do a one and go.
Now, this time I told her, I said, you didn't go far enough, you didn't back up far enough.
The
You had
back
plenty
edge,
more room
side
to
edge of
go.
the driveway.
There you go. And done.
And then she's just
Good
gonna
job.
go.
And that's a one and go.
That's an
Tell her she passed her
example
driving
of a one
test.
and go,
That's the one and go.
which is fine.
Because I wanted to see, all this talk about it, I wanted to actually see it works. I wanted to lay it out so I could actually
What
tell.
was the third one? You might as well just show the third one.
And then the third one, she
Here's an
came up
example
the
of pulling
driveway.
in to the parking area and then backing, turning the car around. And then
Doing a
she's gonna
three-point turn, and then she's gonna back right into the garage.
Using the camera?
Use the camera, yeah,
Yeah,
the phone,
good.
iPhone
Hey.
camera.
That's right.
And this is just another
what it's for.
example.
And I wanted to see for myself how much room there was there for the car to get in and out of that third unit.
Street, and then
That's a 9-foot door?
she can,
That's a 9-foot door.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
that's the end of our presentation.
Good. I bet you can get out real easy.
Yeah.
All right. That was snow on the ground as well, right?
Yeah, there was all snow, sure, yeah.
The white stuff? Yes.
All right, so I think for our driving demonstration, Mr. Ryder, you were still,
No, and I appreciate that. I just, and like I said, I'm not opposed to the project. I think it's a great project. I think, what you're doing, beautifying a parcel within the center of town. But anyway, as I always state, we're here representing all the residents and the abutters and everyone else that has questions and concerns of what has transpired with the town center overlay district. Of various projects that have gone on. So, and I think it's our duty to, raise those concerns, that there's issues with some things that have gone on, and I think, I can't speak for Mr. Fratalia, but I think that's why we brought these things up and had our doubts about it. And
Well, I can see all your concerns, and I think we've been here for over a year now, trying to address all the concerns, and it is a tight site, I agree, and but, you're talking financially, it is borderline to do this. That building needs to be torn down, it needs to be demolished, it's falling down right now. Actually, maybe the fire department could use it as a
controlled burn.
test. You could have you guys train on it or something, right?
Good venting experience.
The commercial part of it is very nerve-wracking because a lot of the commercial property, a lot of the commercial space in Tewksbury is vacant.
Sure.
So that part of it, you can't even figure in financials on that part of it.
Absolutely.
So it's very borderline as far as financials goes. That's why we tried to figure this out as best we could and get a really nice layout and try to keep the historic commission happy with it also and move it up for the fire department. Remember the original layout was 3 units in a row, which gave, everybody had turned into their garage, but the fire department didn't like that one. So
Understand.
that's why this iteration became the plan that we used due to the fire department.
And I understand that a lot of times, I know the chairman has stated this before, what is presented to this board in the beginning, we may like, but there are variables and other things that change what we may like for whether it be code or turning radius or another department's questions or concerns. And, you know, what you've shown there, you know, it's hard to dispute. I'm not, you know, somebody turned a car around. I'm not saying that it can't be done. You know, I just think it's a tight spot. And, I mean, it was proven that we can do it. And, you know, parking was a concern of mine in the beginning. But as Mr. Johnson stated, you're exceeding that. You brought other spots in. You're exceeding what our town requirement is. So, you know, if that's something that we have a question with, I think we need to address what our calculation is. But, you know, I don't think, you know, it's hard to dispute what we've done here. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to make the parcel better than it currently is. It's going to clean up that, you know, blighted property. And at the end of the day, that's what the goal for we want developers to do.
So, and again, just because I think it'd be easier if I do it this way, but, so Mr. Fatalia's requirement to get to yes is the reduction of a unit. Is that the same requirement you have, or is there something in between losing a unit and where we are now? Because otherwise, you've got 3-2, and there's nothing,
Right.
I don't know how to get you there. If it's unit loss, then that's a decision you have to make. But if there's something that's in between that, then this would be the, you know, if we could let them know what that is and see if that's something they can live with.
No, you know, I mean, I personally like the 3 in a row. I mean, but, you know, and I stated that way back when. But obviously, we had to change it because now you're required to put apparatus down the road. You know, the applicant's done everything they can to try and make it work. And, you know, I can't argue with a video. Like I said, the only concern I will have is going to be managing the snow within the property. And it's going to be difficult, but I think that's going to be in the special permit, and we'll have that to go after them if there is a concern of snow being pushed onto the road or snow being pushed to the neighbor's fence, because the abutter's fence is right on that property line. And if too much snow is pushed up there, that's going to have an impact on the property owners next door, as well as, you know, along the front in that corner.
So, Mr. Ryder, let me ask you this, because it sounds a little bit like you may feel that you may have shifted a little bit.
It did after seeing what.
But this is what I was going to ask, is are there any additional, beyond some of the conditions we have in here, is there anything else that you'd like to see added as a condition so that it's specific and mentioned, that will alleviate any of your concerns that you feel like if they're already in there, that's fine.
No,
if you feel like there's anything else.
No, I think I think what we've discussed over the last,
Okay.
as the applicant stated, over a year, our concerns. Like I said, the biggest concern was their number of units and getting access in and out of there. You know, 7 months out of the year, it's not going to be an issue. Maybe 8 months. You know, we're not getting many storms like we have, but could impact the property. And just concerned of the abutters with the snow storage and just making sure that bit gets addressed.
Mr. Chairman, could I just indicate that, you know, in terms of an additional layer, we talked about the condominium documents, the homeowners, association documents. I'm sure that Ms. Walsh would be agreeable that we, in other situations, again, if part of the concern is disclosure, making certain that everyone is aware, we could agree to have incorporated into any purchase and sales agreement reference to these terms and conditions.
I think that would be a good idea.
And insert into the unit deeds.
Because that may
Specific
change
reference.
down the road. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. You know, I mean, we know, that condo associations are going to change and they're going to be sold and things happen. But I think putting that in with the deed, that's part of the requirement. So doesn't change down the road. We're not sitting here, somebody else is trying to manage this. I think having that as part of the deed, that there's that expectation. So if the town does have to go after, or,
Yeah, that's fine.
go to the property owner at the time and say, listen, this is in your deed, this needs to be, rectified, so we don't have an issue.
So
I think that's-
as I see the condition in here, so I think this would be in addition to number 2 in the proposed conditions, to make reference to including the conditions in, the HOA as well as the
any
rollover
unit
into the
deed,
unit
and-
deeds.
And I would even go, again, not only from sometimes perspective of protects the board and the town, but also
Right.
from protection that I would say we incorporate reference in any potential purchase and sales agreement.
Right.
That the party is made aware of the fact that, when acquiring this property is subject to terms and conditions set forth in a special permit, recorded book and page, which includes but not limited to, and then specify the items that we've highlighted in the exhibit and the rules and regulations.
And I would even stipulate in the contract, I talked to my snow removal guys, and every 4 inches it gets done. Every 4 inches, it's right in the contract.
like I said, I think the snow part of it's manageable.
Yeah, I
It's
think
it's
so.
just something you need to stay on top of.
Right.
That's
If
what
it's right
most
in
of
the
them-
contract, right from the beginning of the year, every 4 inches this has to be done. That's what you get paid for.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what most of them did
Yeah.
this storm.
And I think if we put that into the deed, into that, from what I've seen tonight with, a car pulling it out. And all of the other conditions, could you just go through those?
So,
Okay,
why don't I just do that now, that way,
Yeah.
in case, just so we're picking them up. And these are the proposed ones, you guys have seen these already, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so proposed condition 1 is the applicant will post a $20,000 performance bond in the form of savings passbook. I won't read all the language, that's our standard language.
Understand?
Number 2, the snow shall be removed off-site if it exceeds the capacity of snow storage on the property. The planning board reserves the right to require additional conditions regarding snow storage if deemed necessary, which are actually what we just discussed. So that'll be modified to include what we just discussed, so that stuff's also included in that. But there'll be a 5th one that makes the reference to the included HOA as well as into the deed of what would, the requirements. Number 3 is each parking space of the residential unit shall be marked for each unit's usage. The parking space designated for commercial property shall have a sign indicating business hours and visitor hours for after business hours as determined by the planning board. And then, and they're not in here, but we had the one for the marking of
Yes.
that area.
Hashed,
Which
that
would,
was-
the hashing and the no parking signage. I know it's appearing on the plan, but I want to make sure we list it as a condition.
Right.
Excuse me. That section will be kept clear. It will be, which includes snow storage or anything else. No parking, it'll be marked for such, and it'll be marked on the ground latticed to show no parking in that area, because clearly it's important for what we just saw up there. Are there any I'm missing?
No, I think we covered.
And the 3 waivers requested are the ones you have listed here. There's nothing, okay, so right now that's section 9434 to waive the master signage plan requirement. Section 8608 to waive the side yard setback requirement to allow the side setback of 7.7 feet from the property line and 16 feet side setback to 20 East Street. And section 8608 to waive the rear setback requirement to allow for the rear setback of 21.7 feet and 16 feet for the deck of the property. Those all sound correct to you as well? Everybody up here is okay with that, if that's where we are?
Yep.
All right. So I did that kind of as I guess, from now, it's informational. But at this point, and because Mr. Ryder made the comment, because I don't think we've had any of this so far, but I'm going to open it up to the audience for any comments from anyone on this project. Does anybody in the audience wish to come up and comment?
Yeah, the guy in the box.
All right, going once, twice. All right, so I don't remember, and I'll ask Slaughter if she remind me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had any abutter concerns or anything brought up during the hearing either, right?
Nope.
Okay, so we feel good about all that then, too.
And I have spoken to an abutter.
Yep.
And he's like, they're finally doing something with the property.
Yeah.
He was happy.
Right.
He did raise a concern about the snow being pushed against his fence, but I told him that I would address that concern.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a letter from an abutter not approving the site, I believe, if I'm correct.
Okay. All right.
Alex?
So we had noted that from before, so that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Fowler, did you have some?
My only question is, Mr. Hardeman, he kind of does, I'm trying to think of the word, he doesn't really say a yes or a no.
He never does.
Well, he does.
He gives us a,
It's actually usually on the no side.
11 he says, I'll withhold and let the planning board decide.
Right.
But, second to the last line, the engineering division withholds providing a recommendation to the planning board until all above comments have been addressed. Which comments? That's a big hole. I mean, that's.
Mr. Chairman, if I might. So, yep, so the latest revision that Mr. Gricci submitted to this board was response, the last item in the packet there, DPW response letter from Andover Consultants dated 1/27/22, and that was Mr. Gricci addressing comments from Mr. Hardeman regarding item number 3 and 4 and 5, I believe, in his comment letter, and that response letter and revised drainage calculations were provided to my office on the 27th, and I forwarded them to Mr. Hardeman. They were provided on the morning of the 28th, and I forwarded them immediately. He was not in the office on Friday and could not offer comment on the final drainage calculation updates. But I do expect to have comments from him in the next couple of days.
that leaves us in a lurch again.
Yeah, right.
But I hate doing this piecemeal and making it condition 2, but I don't want to hold this up anymore.
No, and I
We've been doing this for too
understand that,
long.
and that's the problem with not getting,
So I guess I'll put it to the petitioner at this then, because dragging this out to another meeting into February doesn't make any sense to me. Do you feel that those changes that you've made and submitted will satisfy Mr. Hardeman to the point that if we close this and finish it, your last piece is going to be dealing with Mr. Hardeman, and there won't be really, and to be all honest, in this case, those items are Mr. Hardeman items. Those are not anything we're going to overrule in this room anyways, so you either are going to make him happy or you're not. So nothing we do with this is really going to change that, so it's one of the rare occasions I might not feel bad about approving condition 2,
That's why I brought
getting
that
that sign off, but that's up to you guys. If you want to leave this open and pushed out to another meeting while you can cross your Ts and dot your Is with Mr. Hardeman, feel free.
I think we're fine.
No, like one of them is we have to use a licensed drain layer to install a drain pipe.
I know.
We always use licensed drain layers to install a drain pipe.
But without getting into a back and
Yeah.
forth about
No.
whether those types of things, I just mean, if you're comfortable with that,
Yeah.
in the event that the board feels comfortable with moving forward in a moment here, if that's the case, are you fine with leaving it conditioned to, satisfaction of the the town engineer
Right.
on those outstanding items that we just didn't see that he was all set with?
sure,
Yes.
If it's, either way, if it turns out that stuff was wrong, you were gonna have to deal with him anyways. So, all right, so if that's fine, okay, so we did the audience, we brought it back to the board, we've gone through these to make sure everybody's on the same page, right? Yep. Okay,
Yes.
so then what is the pleasure of the board?
I would, I want to just say one thing.
Yes.
You're the engineer, Dennis. You feel comfortable with this?
I do.
Okay. I make a motion to close the hearing.
A motion made, do I have a second?
second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm
Aye.
sorry, I apologize. Mr. Fattalia is on video, so we have to do everything by roll call, so I
Do a roll
apologize.
call.
All right, so so we have the motion made and seconded. We'll do the roll call for closing. So we'll start with Mr. Fattalia.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Fowler,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney. And the chair votes aye as well. Okay, so the hearing is closed. Now, as to I'm going to start with waivers. So do we have a motion on the waivers as requested and as discussed by me earlier?
Motion to approve.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the waivers as discussed and listed earlier, which are, again, just for section reference, section 9434, Section 8608 and Section 86, well, there's two Section 8608 ones, which were listed earlier. So we have that motion.
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll go same order. Mr. Fattalia?
No.
All right. Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Delaney?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. So we have 4-1 on the waivers. Okay. Now, as to the site plan special permit for Town Center Overlay and Groundwater Protection District, what is the pleasure of the board? Other than silence.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted, providing all of the proposed conditions that were listed earlier.
And amended and added
amended.
this evening.
And amended, as well as they meet all of the town engineer's requirements.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
I think that covers everything.
Mr. Lauer, you fine with that? You got it? Okay. All right, so I have motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
You
did
gotta
it
do the
again.
roll
I
call.
apologize. Mr. Fattalia?
No.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Delaney?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye as well, 4-1. All right, gentlemen, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right, does anybody need a break for a moment? All right, we're going to take a break for just one moment before we start the next hearing. Welcome back. We're going to move on to agenda item D, which is 1768 and 1788 Main Street. This is also a continued hearing from previous meetings. Modification to site plan special permit / use special permit. State your names for the record. The floor is yours.
Dick Cuco from Woodland Design. Mira's going to take the lead.
For the record, Mira Cousins with Civil Design Consultants. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Joe Abbott of 1768 Main Street Realty Trust. So we're here requesting a modification to site plan special permit and use special permit that was issued in 2012. So it's been a while since the last time we were here on October 25th. So I'll give a quick recap of the project. So the goal is to provide much-needed additional parking spaces. We're proposing to restripe the existing lot. We're adding 21 additional parking spaces, and there will be no increase in impervious surface. So since the last meeting, we have addressed all of DPW's comments. The two changes that were made to the plans were we show 9.5 feet wide ADA parking spaces, and also the applicant has agreed to provide a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the project frontage, and this will require a DOT permit. So the applicant is requesting 3 waivers. Waiver requests to sections 5170 and 5421 are related to the allowance of the 14 proposed parking spaces within 10 feet of the southerly lot line for both 1768 and 1788 Main Street. And the third waiver is a modification to the existing waiver to section 5122. So the special permit that was granted in 2012 provided a waiver to this section to allow for a reduction of the required parking spaces from 126 spaces to 112 spaces. And this was based on proposed uses which have been adjusted since 2012. So we are proposing 129 parking spaces. Based on the current use and current zoning, a total of 163 parking spaces are required. However, the special permit issued in 2012 stated that the liquor store experiences no more than 10 spaces at any one time. So if we were to recalculate the required parking spaces based on that condition, the total required parking spaces comes to 137, which is only 8 spaces more than what we're proposing. Additionally, I think it's important to note that the existing 9,000 square feet auto parts store requires 45 spaces to comply with zoning, and the 2,400 square feet laundromat requires 12 spaces. The required parking for both these uses appears to be overestimated based on the operations and observed usage. So the applicant is confident that the proposed 129 parking spaces will satisfy the demand for the use of the entire building. So with that, happy to take any questions.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this parcel very well. I knew it when it was just parcel A, in building A, and then Joe put a building on where we sold Christmas trees for the Alliance for 20 years. So yes, know this parcel very well, and I am happy that the parking that they were getting from Balance Spa was not in the back, but on the side. That's awesome. I think that is fantastic. And talking about the 45 parking spaces necessary for the
O'Reilly.
What is it called? O'Reilly, yeah. The laundromat, I don't know, maybe you could have 12 people in there with the staff at one time or another. I doubt it. I've been in there to do bulky things, and I've never seen it crowded, but it could be. 45 people going into the car lot, into the car parts store. I know, I've been in there. There's 3 or 4 staff, and I've never seen more than 2 or 3 people in there. Not 40. So I'm comfortable with this requirement, with your numbers, to be honest with you. So with that, I'm all set. I'm very happy with this.
All right, Mr. Delaney?
Well, I was in O'Reilly's Auto Parts this morning, and I was the only one in there. So I have to go along with whatever Mr. Fowler said. I'm happy with it.
All right. Mr. Fattalia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I agree with the O'Reilly Auto Parts discussion. Mr. Fowler, I don't do laundry, so I wouldn't ever be in the laundromat, so just so on the record, I want that to be on the record for me as well.
Will now, Vin.
My wife does a great job at it, so, but I also concur that the allotment of spaces for those two establishments is probably overstated as far as the required or how they're used now, so I have no problem with the discussion about the parking being at 137, so I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ryder?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The only question I have is, you know, when the original exemption was given, it was based on the liquor store.
Yeah.
What's the intended use? You know, that's the thought process that the liquor store is going to stay. Now that if something else goes into that liquor store, the requirement for parking is going to increase.
Yeah, basically, what we did, Mr. Ryder, was we said, okay, let's assume that what would have been O'Reilly's would go to the liquor store. 7,000 square feet, it's not quite 45, so that's why we feel comfortable with that. We kind of allotted in our own calculations 10 for O'Reilly, because sometimes they have two delivery vehicles.
Delivery vehicles, yes.
So we said, all right, let's allot 10 for them. Then we gave what was the liquor store, the full amount for retail.
Okay.
And then we did restaurant, because the original plan was there was going to be a donut shop and a restaurant and a drive-through where O'Reilly's is. So the numbers were a little kind of back and forth, but we did take that into account. We said, okay, basically we're shifting the burden from what was allocated for O'Reilly over to what's going to go into the liquor store, and vice versa. So at the end of the day, it comes out the same for what we're asking the waiver for. But that's kind of what we did. Yeah.
There was a donut shop back there originally, correct?
Where the current restaurant was Donut Maker.
Donut Maker.
No,
There was a donut shop, actually, it was down
my
with
daughters
the,
worked there. I should remember.
There was a
the name.
donut shop that was in there.
It was Donut Maker. It was Donut
I
Maker.
don't remember the
There was a donut shop there.
Well, you know,
Look at me.
Then I ate donuts.
our girls
I defer to you gentlemen for what's historically in this town.
I worked next door, so I know I worked at the post office, so there was a donut shop there. It's the only place open at late night, all nights.
I had to get up at 4 a.m. to drive my daughters there, so I know it was open late.
You mean it was time to make the donuts?
No, but I think, you know, I think adding those is going to be a help. I know because there was the burden of the overflow parking in Balance Spa. But I also, one note that the applicant is going to be putting a sidewalk, and that's something that is going to tie in with the Starbucks as well.
I think they already started the application.
Application?
For MassDOT,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. No, other than that, I think it's great. Are they planning on doing anything else to the parcel, you know, when they do this?
Well, eventually, knowing the owner there, he'll probably, spiff the place up a little bit.
Okay. Not that they're required to, just ask.
Yeah, well.
Nope, I appreciate that, thank you.
All right. Nothing really to add to that. I think the sidewalk thing is important. I know that was sort of just the piece we were really waiting for, and some of these other things were still sort of floating, but I don't think they were what was holding it up. It was really just an answer on the sidewalk, really. And obviously, the place could continue operating as is and have the spaces that are there. This is going to increase it, so I don't see where where it's not a win, to increase it.
Yeah, we had some logistics with some poles in the sidewalk, but we worked that out, and the owner and the new owner said, look, just put the sidewalk in, it's better for us. It's, hoping to get some of the rooftop people from apartments down the street, and, to come and walk to the facility, so.
And I think it's worth noting, too, that this is being caused by the success of a business
Correct.
in town. You know, this isn't just some willy, there's a reason for it. It's
We
because
wanna
they
keep-
need the space, and you know, because it's busy, they need them. It makes complete sense to me. I think this is the reverse of what we just discussed in the last one. We're way overestimating, I think, on the auto parts.
Sure.
You know, partly, and Mr. Fowler was sort of getting at this, I think, you know, with the fact that you order so many things online, the idea that that many people would need to be in an auto parts store at any given time versus being there for 2 minutes to probably pick up what you're getting anyways, if you're getting something. So
The bulk of their
I have no problem with the sort of finagling around and figuring out where, you know, why the number works. I think it works.
Yeah,
That's why I
and
asked, because that would be the question. Well, I mean, as stated, the exemption was given because of the liquor store, but explaining that is why we're doing that.
and it's
shifting around.
probably worth noting that the majority of their business is delivery to repair shops.
True.
So, you know, the storefront is there because, you know, they need to have a storefront, but most of their business, all of the auto parts stores, it's delivering to repair shops.
There is one ask that I'd like to make, and this is just because I just feel like it continues to go on there. The outside, that is, both lanes are out only from the property. On one side, it says "do not enter," where you would think you'd see "do not enter" even if there were an in and an out. To install one on that opposite side, so both sides say "do not enter," so that people, because I've watched people whip the left there at the light thinking, well, the "do not enter" just means not there. Well, that's already obvious. You shouldn't be on that side of the road to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't go in there. But it's meant, that whole thing is a "do not enter." So
Yeah,
I
not
think
a
if you put one on both sides,
Not a
it'll just
problem.
make it a little clearer and a little safer,
Yeah.
especially since the amount of traffic coming out of there from the restaurant is more than maybe what was going in and out of there over the years.
Yeah.
And I'd just as soon not see somebody whip the left in there and, you know, have that happen just because it wasn't clear. I mean, they come out the other side, it's the in anyways.
Right.
You know,
We'll-
really fight so many battles, I guess, but.
That sign's gonna need to be relocated due to the tip down anyways.
Yeah.
All right.
What I would suggest so we don't have to come back, and I know directional signs aren't, you know, requiring special permit, but we're gonna look into maybe putting like on either side of the driveway, like an arrow, like when, like.
Yes.
Like at the Golden Arches, you know, so going out, and maybe it'll say, you know, restaurant day or something, but that way it's kind of, it serves two purposes. It gives a little recognition to the property, so people that are coming, this is,
I think the only reason people mistake it, really, more so than the in, is because it's at a light.
yeah,
I think that's the reason. You sit there at the light and you just sort of think, oh, I can go left when it turns green, and no.
The other end has a small enter sign.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
It needs a left.
if you have something that says delineated as exit, I think that would help as well.
I think it'll help to the southbound traffic. They'll see that the restaurant is there with the directional sign.
And
then
it's,
come down.
to me, I'm not going to add it in here as a condition,
No.
because it's already really a condition originally, that the entrances will be marked, because we already had to do this once not too long ago, about getting the in restriped, which they did, you know, do. So I'm just making it a note, asking that it be done. I'm not going to put it into this, because I feel like it's really a product of the
Well, Mira will
underlying
add
permit.
it, Mira will add it to the plan, so it'll be on the Mylars when we bring them down to Alex.
All right.
Can I ask one more
Yes,
question,
Mr.
Mr.
Ryder.
Fowler? I'm through you, Mr. Chair. On the, now the shift in property line, you know, for the additional parking,
That's a permanent lease.
it is a permanent lease. Now, can we look, I mean, there is not a tip down at the end. Now, is the lease always, is that permanent lease
In
running to the?
perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Is now that running all the way up to the edge of road? If you look at sheet C3,
What's your question? Is it-
up here, you know, I'm just looking at, should there be a tip down across their parking lot? You know, see how you have it, you're adding a tip down, right here, Ms. Kuko, you're adding a tip down here on this one. Should there be one here? To this end?
That little section.
Yeah, to carry that across. And the only reason I ask that, because the parcel is changing, because it's a lease in perpetuity. If something comes into the balance spar, they no longer have the rights of that parcel. So to put a tip down, it would be, so should we put that in as part of this permit? Because the whole parcel's being shifted as part of the lease.
Well, the lease doesn't include the front section, but
Well, that's my question. Does the lease run to the front of the road?
No,
Okay.
it's just until the edge of the parking
Okay,
space.
so it's the
Just the
back
grab.
section.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, so then that could be addressed. I was just concerned if
Yeah.
balance bar changed hands down the road, and this is a lease in perpetuity, does that carry to the edge of road?
You can see a line there, I don't know if it's
I
like a
think-
dashed line going up the property, and then it takes
Okay.
a 90-degree turn.
yeah, if that section of sidewalk goes in, our owner probably will take care of his portion of it. The only reason I was hesitant even before is because then we'd be coming up, we'd go over, and then what do we do with their
Right.
driveway, so.
Yeah, I was just concerned that
No,
the change of use.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. All right, I was talking.
So I'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience, any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing that there is no one in the audience, I suggest we do not have any questions, comments, or concerns. So with that, I'll bring it back to the board. So we discussed the waiver sections. The proposed conditions as listed on here have obviously the performance bond, that's 10K on here. And then the second one is the parking and access easement shall be recorded at the registry of deeds as the two properties are owned by two different entities. Was there anything else that we needed to add for conditions? No one? No one? Okay. All right, so with that, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the hearing.
All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Fattalia?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Fowler?
With pleasure, aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. As to the modification of the site plan and use special permit, what is the I'm sorry, we gotta do waivers first. So for the waivers, again, we discussed them already, but I'll just hit the numbers again. Section 5170, section 5421, and section 5122, which is the note that that's to 129 spaces, rather than the 163 that would have been required otherwise. I've got my numbers right? 129, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So as to the waivers, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion made and seconded. Mr. Fattalia?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Fowler?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well, unanimous. Now, as to the modification of the site plan and use special permit as requested, do we have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion to grant with the proposed conditions as we just discussed. So we have a motion made and a second. Mr. Fattalia?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Fowler?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well, also unanimous. All right, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Appreciate your help.
Good night.
All right, that takes care of that one. All right, moving on to old business. Is there any old business that any members wish to discuss this evening?
All set, Mr. Chairman, on my end.
All right, hearing none. Any new business that any of the members wish to discuss this evening? Also,
Yeah,
hearing-
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. F-
we discussed the possibility of doing something for Don Cathart, our former administrative assistant, for February 14th. Are we still planning on doing that?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say that is we have the agenda as it is right now
Busy?
has nothing on it with one tentative item. It makes me wonder if maybe we might not be here on the 14th.
We'll be celebrating Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We'll be
Celebrating Valentine's Day.
at a nice dinner somewhere.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
maybe just to be safe, it might be better to set this for the 28th, not the 14th. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Alex, did you have a comment, Alex?
the only thing I wanted to say is, we don't want to cancel February 14th right now, just in case of
No,
A&R.
no, no, no. I just
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
rather than
just throwing that out there,
have
yeah.
have that one thing set in stone and then see that this might be otherwise a night we wouldn't be here. I don't know if that makes sense, whereas the 28th might make more sense because we've already got 2 hearings on the 28th as it is.
Right.
For sure. So that, I'm just saying for safety purposes.
Yep.
All right, so I think the 28th might make more sense. All right? Okay.
And I'm getting a $100 gift certificate for al frescos.
Okay.
For everybody, just so you
Okay.
know, okay?
All right,
Okay.
all right. And then,
Just so you know.
any correspondence?
None.
No correspondence to note? All right, with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, a motion made and seconded. I will not take a roll call on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr.